Welcome to the energetic notes for January 2026. The first thing that I think about when I think about a month is an image that comes to my mind, and that kind of sets the theme for that month. So, if you want, you can start this by kind of doing that exercise yourself by thinking about if you take a deep breath, if you just take a moment to connect with yourself, to be with yourself, to be with your own inner wisdom, what is the image that comes to your mind for the month of January? What is that image? For me, I can tell you that it was a valley. I just saw a valley with beautiful green hills on the left, on the right, and a river in the middle, and me walking along that. Now, I thought about having studied literary sciences. I'm always big about metaphors, about symbols, and trying to figure out what things mean. And with the valley, of course, we have it signifies, being uninterrupted on your path because you literally only have one path and you do not see what is to the right, you do not see what is to the left because there is just hills and all you can see is the horizon, your goal, your focus. So I think it kind of brings with it an energy of focus this January 2026. And I don't mean focus as in you've set yourself huge goals that you want to accomplish, and January is going to be, just going into it like a rocket, going into it fast, going into it quickly without hesitation. That's not necessarily what focus is about. It can be much more quiet than that. It can be much more beautiful than that because as I've said before, to me, the new year and January, they're not really about that hustle mentality of now I'm changing my whole life. But as we are constantly trying to improve this world, improve ourselves, show up for people, show up for this world to change it, to bring positive change rather than fear, rather than totalitarianism that we are seeing rising everywhere, rather than all of that, we are trying to bring in a calmness and a constant feeling of safety for ourselves and for others. Now, I think one of the most important things for that is not hustling and focus and intensity, but it's being with ourselves and connecting with ourselves so that we can be a role model, so that we can be an example for other people, so that others see how we connect with ourselves and how we live our lives in integrity with our own values and set boundaries around things that don't go with those values. And through that, we are a role model for the people around us and we bring change into the world. I speak about this on my Patreon for this month of January as well. If you want to go deeper into that with journaling prompts, with affirmations, etc., I have a lot on there that you can use for your own spiritual practice. But either way, for January, I feel this energy of focus, this energy of if you want to change something, even if it's just a small thing, January will support you in that. And if you don't know yet what's going on within yourself, maybe the end of the year has kind of brought more confusion than clarity, that is totally fine because we have a Cancer full moon coming up at the beginning of January. And even if you watch this after the Cancer full moon, you can still tune into that energy. It's fine. But what I'm trying to say is that the Cancer full moon is going to give us more clarity about our inner vision. Because Cancer isn't whiny. Cancer isn't the weird emotional kid like sometimes astrology tries to make it out to be in all of the magazines, etc. Cancer is a really strong sign of inner integrity, of boundaries, of healthy boundaries, of having your little crab shell that protects you. And with a full moon, you can use that energy to look at and reflect on what inner vision and what inner wisdom wants to come through. Because at the beginning of the year, we are still in this process of really getting in there. We are still in winter, at least in the northern hemisphere, and it's just the start of the year. This is not like go and sprint ahead, because at the end of the day, spring is still about 3 months away, and we don't have to force ourselves to make all of the changes, all of the dreams come true that we have for 2026. It's more of a slow start, but it's a clear start and it's a focused start. That's what I feel for January 2026. And I think one of the central points of that is also, I was doing a rune reading, and the rune that came up was Gebo. Gebo is the rune of gifts. It's just an X if you're interested. And what came through with that rune is that we can find ways to make changes that we want to make goals that we want to reach easier to reach by thinking about what our natural gifts are. A few months ago on Patreon, I also had a very big thing about that, like journaling prompts, affirmations about how to find out what your spiritual gifts are. And that doesn't necessarily mean spiritual gifts as in, intuition, seeing the future. A spiritual gift can be being really good at organizing, being very good at Excel, like making tables, being good at maths, or being a great communicator. All of those things are spiritual gifts because they show us what the path that we are supposed to be on is. And sometimes we feel like our goals need to be so complicated and so difficult. But if you think about your goals for January or for 2026, how do they relate to your specific gifts? How do they relate to your specific spiritual gifts or worldly gifts? And how can you make them easier with that? Sit down and have a think about that, or take a pen right now, because probably something came to your mind. If you have a goal and you also kind of know what you're good at, try to find the connecting point between those two. That's what I wrote down. Because, for example, I'm very good at writing things, I'm good at communicating. So, how can I use that in order to reach my goals and in order to make it easier? Like, do I maybe need to write down my thoughts about it so I can just brain dump all of it rather than keeping it all in my head? Things like that. You will find how your gifts can make your goals easier to reach. And with that, I think comes the message of the path of least resistance can sometimes still be the right path. Because I feel like more and more we are falling into this mindset of we need to do everything that is hard. Only if it's hard, it was worth doing. We need to, just find things that are difficult in order for them to be worth learning or worth achieving. But sometimes where there is less resistance, there is so much to be learned. Sometimes where there is less resistance, there is ease, there is flow, there is the ability to learn things that you would have never learned if you just kept doing difficult things. So think about that as well. Think about what comes to your mind as I'm saying this. Where do you feel like you are maybe taking a path of, where there's a blockage, there's a resistance? Can you somehow make that resistance softer? Maybe even use your gifts for that? Or is there a way to walk a different path that has less resistance but might get you to the same goal? So think about that this January. All right. What else do I have? I also wrote down shedding skin, and that is very uncomfortable. That is another image that came to me, and I feel like it fits with 2025. I feel like all the creators all over the internet were talking about how 2025 was the year of the snake, and now 2026 is the year of the fire horse. And I think it's really important to think about what that actually means for you personally. Because in 2025, I think a lot of us shed some skins. For me personally, I did some brave things that I realized were maybe not the path that I was supposed to go, and that changing one thing in my life isn't going to solve all of my issues magically if I don't actually work on those issues. Um, and that can be very uncomfortable to realize that the path to healing maybe looks different than you thought, and you don't just have to change this one thing and then you're magically healed. So I think this year change is going to be a lot easier because we are going into a more active energy rather than sinking into our own depths and sinking into our own, um, you know, depths is just the right word, our own unconscious, etc. We are instead trying to make actionable change, and January and this new year are really supporting us in that. If you don't have such a clear vision, or if you want more input, if you have questions, I do also still have my 2026 tarot readings online. That is just anyaesma.com. I will put it in the description. If you want a reading with me, go over there and you will find a lot of answers. I do recorded video readings, so you don't have to talk to me directly, which can be a bit stressful for some people. So I decided to just offer recorded video readings. So I just record your tarot reading with your answers for you. And if you put in the code new me, you get 10% off of that reading because we're in the new year and we're starting. So now is kind of your last chance to get it. So that's why I wanted to give a little discount. Yeah, so just put in the code new me on anyaesma.com and you will get 10% off of that New Year's reading. All right, so that's it. And I think another really important thing that I feel for my January is that I want less input and more output, especially with relation to creativity, because we get so much input from everywhere about what we should be doing, what we should not be doing, what we definitely need to be doing, what we are in danger if we do. That's just how our society has become. That's how the internet has become. That's how politics has become. It's all about extremes. And that input can be really, really overstimulating. And I feel like a lot of us are realizing that our nervous systems cannot quite handle that kind of intensity. And I think it's really important that in January, or in 2026 in general, we find a way to have less input from the outside, like less but higher quality people, creators that you are truly aligned with, rather than just scrolling reels and seeing random people, and really working deeply with that, with those creators, with what they do. You know, I have like 2 or 3 favorite creators that I kind of cycle through. Sometimes I feel more drawn to one, sometimes, oops, sorry, I hit the microphone. Sometimes I feel more drawn to another one. And I think it's so important to find someone who is on a similar path as you, or says things that are comforting to you, or that are meaningful to you, that make you reflect, and focusing on that, focusing on long form content rather than short form content. It's so, so important, I think. So that's something I wrote down as well. Less input, more output. So less of this, I need to do this course, or I need to do this retreat, or I need to do this tarot reading, and more of, let me create something for myself. Let me go into my own inner wisdom. And as I said, the Cancer full moon is perfect for that as well. And I think it's funny because we are a generation and we are a society that is just steeped in creativity right now, with our phones, with all of the technology that we have at our fingertips, additionally to all of the traditional methods of creation, like painting or writing with your hands, sketching, whatever it is, crafting. We have so many creative outlets, but so many of us are stuck in just consuming and not creating. And we just see what others create and we somehow feel like, yeah, now I did it too. But you didn't, and it didn't give your brain the same release. So try to be more creative, try to, craft more, whatever it is that you want to do, paint, crochet, uh, stick stickers into an album and then write something about them, write a story about them, paint whatever you see outside, paint a tree that you're seeing, or just draw random things, color things that you drew. All of that is creative outlet. And I think it's so, so meaningful. And we forget to do it because we get so stuck in the consumption of other people's creations. Yeah. And besides that image of the valley, I'm just looking at my journal here, looking at my notes. I also had a bit of a feeling of wariness or impatience, a feeling of maybe there's blockages to you changing, even though you're very focused on making certain changes or doing certain spells. If you were into witchcraft or, anything, or studying a certain topic, you might feel like there's not as much progress forward as you want. And that is definitely going to change in January, but it's also going to change in the spring as you stay focused on these things. So don't just drop your focus if you don't see immediate results, because that's also one of the illnesses of our generation, right? Needing that instant gratification and otherwise feeling like, well, I might as well just quit if we don't see instant results. So stick with it. January is a great month for focus. It's a great month for finding your own inner wisdom, your own inner gifts that help you reach your goals or make changes that you want to change more easily. And that's all of my energetic notes. If you want to join my Patreon, you know where the link is. If you want to get a 2026 tarot reading from me, you know where the link is. And I appreciate it so, so much if you visit any other spaces where I am online other than this video. And it does help if you like it. It helps if you subscribe. Thank you so, so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Tell me in the comments what your January is going to be like. I'm really excited to hear what everyone's focus is, what everyone's goals are. Let me know. Bye-bye.